It's no secret that I have a passion for and that I embrace student leadership and all the things that it has to offer. I've come quickly to realize that one of the most influential people in creating the type of school climate that you desire and the culture that you desire truly is the student. They just have to be given the opportunity and permission to do so. Let's face it, students have the passion, the energy, and the ideas, although sometimes they're crazy, that go far beyond the norm. And I truly believe that they are not only the greatest resource in a school community, but the communities which they also live in. They just need to be given permission to use those, and that brings education to life. That said, it can seem difficult for some adults and our society as a whole to understand and embrace that. We live in a culture where we often look at what's wrong with young people and forget about what's right about them. I'm sad to say that the world that has been created, mostly by adults, has often done a poor job of demonstrating the values and the virtues that we desire our young people to have. Let's face it, we have role models, athletes, musicians, politicians, movie stars, business leaders who demonstrate poor behaviors that are often overlooked and many times emulated by young people. We have a society where media and video games sell filth and violence to the young with the ultimate goal of selling ads and making money. And if you look at that, a young kid saying, "Oh good, you brought your ID." Sex and violence is used to a greater degree to draw in more viewers. Music is heralded as art, and it receives awards that is laced with profanity, degrades women, mocks relationships, and encourages illegal acts. Nothing seems to offend anymore. We are constantly bombarding our kids with negative messages. So is it any wonder that they sometimes don't know right from wrong in finding health and purpose in their life? A few years ago, I did some research, and I spent some time looking at the issues related to youth, and I read articles in magazines and other materials on the topic. Frankly, I was saddened of the negative messages that I felt was being sent out to our youth. I'd like to share some examples of what I found over a 6-month period of time on the covers of 2 of the top-selling magazines in the country, Time and Newsweek. How to Spot a Troubled Kid, a case for smaller schools. Growing Up Online, today's kids dwell in a world of computers and video games. How do we help parents help them make the right choices? The Secret Life of Teens, how well do you know your kid? And of course, the unthinkable, the schoolyard killers, an 11-year-old who turned on his classmates on a playground in Jonesboro, Arkansas. And the also unthinkable, a first grader who had no ability to resolve conflict in an appropriate manner, went home, picked up his uncle's gun, and brought it forth to school and settled his differences that way. And of course, we all know the story about Columbine, the Columbine effect, and there's many, many people asking why. Now, that was depressing, and I don't mean to depress you all today, but I want to ask one question. Where are the positive stories about young people and all the good that they have to offer? In that 6-month period of time, I found 0. They are few and far between, and frankly, I personally refuse to accept that what is portrayed is our reality. I have found that there are 2 types of people in the world. There are those that look through the lens of negativity. Students are broken, they're messed up, they need to be fixed. But there's also a second type of person who sees life with a glass half full mentality. They ask what is right, good, and possible with young people instead of the societal norm of always focusing on the negative. In my early years of principal, I, as well as most principals throughout the entire United States, was tasked with the job of dealing with creating a safe school climate. This was the aftermath of many school shootings, and the increased level of bullying and violence was occurring nationwide. Legislation was written that mandated policies and procedures to be updated, and programs were being sold to schools to help you stay compliant with these expectations. Most schools did surveys to find out how safe do the kids and the staff actually feel at school. I found it impossible for administration to independently create the type of schools that gave kids a caring sense of belonging and where they felt safe. It was overwhelming, and I decided there needed to be a better way. So I decided to take these issues directly where it mattered to the students and to seek their help and advice. They willingly looked at the data, they talked about their wishes, they helped write policies and procedures, they set goals, and most importantly, they held each other accountable. While some criticize this strategy of giving kids equal power, I completely disagree. Instead, I saw it as giving kids equal voice. Let's face it, it's their school too. Now, I'd like to share with you a few examples of how young people can transform and be a part of a better way of doing things. The students felt that the best way for creating the type of culture was to create a school where student accomplishments could be celebrated and kids felt like they belonged. They helped me define a common definition of behavior that was implemented through our school as our bullying policy. Disrespect or violence is any mean word, look, sign, or act that hurts a person's body, feelings, reputation, and things. A pretty simple definition when you look at it. Yet, as a principal, it's very easy for me to administer that. And the kids helped create that and hold each other accountable to that definition. The students also set a goal of school spirit. It was the number one priority that they said we need to increase participation in extracurriculars and celebrate the success and support each other in a manner that builds community and belonging. Now, in the schools I've worked in, those that have chosen to empower young people to be part of this process, the results truly are amazing. And I'm here to tell you that the data backs it up. Those that reported they felt bullied at school dropped to under 1% in 1 year's time. Over 70% of the students at the schools I've been in have now achieved honor roll status, and over 95% go on to college each year. In the last 3 years, we have had 3 National Merit finalists and a Presidential Scholar in a senior class of 25. The graduating class 2 years ago of 23 students garnered over $800,000 in scholarship offers. The attendance rates rose over 95%. Even those kids you wished maybe didn't always come to school, came to school. The number of behavioral issues that were sent to the office declined markedly, and it made my job easy. And then participation in extracurricular. This was unprecedented. It increased from 45% of the students being involved to over 90% in 3 years' time. A chess team was started that has now won 2 state championships. Now, the problem I have is this chess team has grown to 3 teams, K through 12. I'm the only school in North Dakota that's had to hire 3 chess coaches to meet the demand of over 60 kids. And they're holding the state chess title tournament on Saturday at Shilo. You should come over and watch. You know why? It's a great sport to watch. Parents are there. There's people cheering and celebrating. And it just embodies what it's all about. The Robotics Club started a couple years ago, and they have qualified for not only the national tournament, but the world competition 2 years in a row. The young man in the middle called me one January day when I canceled school because of bad weather, and he asked if I could open up the school so he could work on the robot. I got stuck going to do that, but I thought, wow, that's pretty much unprecedented. The school has had 5 musicals in the past 5 years, and it's been performed with over 30% of the student body involved. The athletic programs have been added to our school, and rosters have grown in size with successes all the way to the state level that is unprecedented. Over 15 state tournament appearances in the past 4 years. Not bad for a high school of only 100 students. I've had people over the years who've criticized me for staying in education. They claim I needed to seek a profession where more money and prestige, and what I've learned from students has provided me, in my opinion, a wealth of knowledge that's unforgettable and experiences that make it all worthwhile. I've witnessed students through the good and the bad of the floods of the Red River Valley over the past decade. I watched these students as they worked tirelessly, saving their homes, their schools, their community. While there were a few losses, and that's kind of my claim to fame, my school flooded twice, I saw the tears that were shed, but I also saw the students who came the next day and helped clean up and rebuild the school. Then I moved to Bismarck, North Dakota, thinking, I'm safe from floods. In 2011, the mother of all floods hit the Missouri River, and the community responded again, filling over 11 million sandbags. 11 million sandbags, most of this being done by youth. When asked, we canceled final tests at our school that spring, and instead we put together teams of students to assist those without financial or labor resources to build sandbag dikes for protection. The students responded day and night for over 2 weeks. All it took for me was to make one call to our student body president, and within minutes, he would assemble a team of over 30 students ready to go. I've traveled with students on mission trips to Mexico, Guatemala, and locally, and I've witnessed their servant's heart and their attitude to give to something bigger than themselves. I've participated with our youth as they've set policies, written handbooks, testified before the legislature, and dealt with bullying issues, proactive approaches to drugs, alcohol, and suicide. Students have volunteered as mentors to work with younger kids, to be peer mediators and help administrators peacefully resolve conflict. Students have built homes for the poor and cleaned up communities following natural disasters. Students are willing to tutor classmates and care for family and friends who are hurting. And more often than the media reports and the cover of magazines show, young people see the best in other people, and they seek ways to help wherever and whomever they can. And for that, I applaud them. To close, I'd like to share a final story about community engagement and impact that I was honored to witness. A few years ago, I was invited to take part in a community forum organized by the governor of North Dakota. They were focusing on youth issues and more specifically, the problem of binge drinking in our state. He gathered a large group of adult leaders from education, law enforcement, social service, politicians, church leaders, addiction counselors, etc., to look at the data and seek possible solutions. Now, whether it was by accident or intentional on my part, I decided to bring with me 4 students. They sat in the room of over 40 adults, and they listened to conversation as adults talked about them for over an hour. Finally, the director of the United Way said, well, let's ask the students what they think. And without missing a beat, they responded, we want to be viewed as a resource in our community. We want to make a difference. Well, then they shared an idea. They said, we have a great idea. Let's have the state's largest food drive in the history of North Dakota. They wanted to call it Fill the Dome, which is a large sports facility in the region, and they went on to further explain how they wanted to challenge all the schools in the region to participate in this friendly competition with the goal of covering the floor of the complex with food and canned goods. Now, I was there, and I can tell you, you could have heard a pin drop, and you visibly saw a collective rolling of the eyes by the adults in the room. Many reasons were given as to why this couldn't work, due to the many logistics involved and the scope of this idea. However, I again credit the United Way for challenging the group. And they asked us to focus on how we could work alongside the students and make this a reality, instead of pointing out all the reasons why it couldn't work. What happened over the course of the next 6 months to this day inspires me. I saw summer meetings held where student council members from all the schools, they met at coffee shops, They met at school campuses, principals' offices. Communication happened over texting and Facebook. It's where I learned how to text. And a collaboration of teamwork started taking shape. Some adults entered the picture to assist the students in securing the space at the Dome, working with area food banks and helping get the word out to school administrators and the broader business community. The greatest challenge for school principals was how to literally get tons of food and canned goods that had been collected at each of the schools over to the facility. Now, what a great positive problem to have for a change. Here's some pictures. You see buses coming, buses loaded with canned goods, even a horse trailer pulled in. It was amazing to see this. The competition was fierce, and when it was all over $50,000 had been raised and 50 tons of food had been gathered. I'm proud to say that that has continued to this day. For 7 years, and over $500,000 and 500 tons of food have been gathered. Now, what did we learn from all of this? We learned that the idealistic belief that the state's largest food drive, Fill the Dome, could work, even though many adults doubted. They taught adults and community members the importance of collaboration, relationship building, and what it takes to make a dream come true. Heck, even the United States Secretary of Agriculture cited this event in a speech he gave in Washington, D.C., to leaders from across the nation as they talked about issues of hunger. They made national news. They showed up at 6 a.m. in the morning for Good Morning America. They held press conferences with local, state, and national leaders. And yes, they were selected as Person of the Year in 2008 by the Fargo Forum. They even had a student representative grace the cover of Parade magazine that celebrated service and the impact that young people were making in their communities. Now, friends, that's the kind of media coverage that our students deserve and which I celebrate. That is education in action, and it brings learning to life. Our job as adults is to mentor young people in such a manner that helps them become the best they can be, to help light that spark of curiosity, to tell the stories of the good that they do and what they have to offer, or better yet, help them become the stories. These and many things I am thankful for. I've had the privilege of working with these students and seeing the difference that they can make and the positive impacts they offer our schools and community. I, for one, believe in the power of youth and know that they will continue to mature and to find young adults that truly will change the world forever. Thank you.